Hey lads, so I got a question, and I get this question quite a bit. Guys will ask me, how can they prepare for prison? And obviously, it's a time where they're pretty nervous. Some people don't even actually know anyone that's in prison, and they might be doing a few years stay or something like that, and they're waiting on sentencing or something, and they don't really know what to do. How can they prepare? And as a rule, guys will think that prison and jail are the same. Like a remand center or holding cells or something like that is the same as prison, and they're not. Like a jail itself, there's still hope in that jail. Like a lot of people haven't been sentenced, they're on their best behavior because they're awaiting sentencing. Like they know that if they fuck up and start bashing people, stabbing people, doing drugs, that it's gonna fuck their sentencing up, so they're quite well behaved. Once you get to prison, like especially prison where people are doing years, a lot of that goes out the window and people take their mask off and they're like, fuck, I've already been sentenced, so I can do whatever I want now. So as a rule, the jail itself is going to be safer than the prison, like than sentencing. I mean, a lot of that shit is common sense. People are being sentenced, often sentenced to very serious crimes, especially if you're doing years. So this guy said to me that he's facing 10 years. How does he prepare for it? And if facing 10 years, it'd be like a long-term unit. I can only give you my perspective. I was at Woodford. I had a 6-year sentence. I got out in 2 because parole, Australia, if you do a third, you're eligible for parole and you can get out. You should always be trying to get out. I know a lot of dope heads and things like that think that it's smart to just do their full time because they can't pass a piss test. They can't pass a test to get parole. So they'd rather just be dope heads and do their full time in prison. But you should always be trying to get parole, because then if you get your parole, you can work and things like that. Like if you have a family and things to support, you can actually do it from the outside. Prison itself, the worst part of prison is the time, like it's dead time. It's not the fighting, although there are a lot of fights, and it's quite violent. There's a lot of drugs. There's a lot of loser energy that's contagious. It's the time lost. Like you're very aware that you just wasted years. And the worst thing about wasting the years, you don't learn anything. I was at Woodford, there's no programs, there's no studies, there's no one coming in to teach you how to do shit. There's a book cart that comes around, like I was at the mainstream there, Woodford, so that's high security. And there's a cart that comes around and brings books, and they just bring random books around so that you can still read, yes, but it's all just random shit. Like it's not anything that's like new or modern or any of that stuff. So, but still, as a rule, you should read. You should stay off the drugs. Like you should not get involved in the substances. If you are using substances now, you should quit. Because in jail, it's not like, anything that's good. It's all Seroquel, subby, and trash. Like all the synthetic shit that just fucks you up and doesn't actually give you like a good high. A lot of it is just the trash. So you don't really want to do that. Like there's nothing in it. And I know that if you're doing 10 years, it's hard. I mean, I have a friend that's still doing 14 years. He's almost had a life sentence. So I know that if you're doing the longer time, that it's harder to stay off that sort of stuff, but it can be done. I got out of prison and I'm a multi-millionaire. I live anywhere in the world. I do anything that I want. So when people say that, jail is the end of your life, for some people it will be. For a lot of people, when they go to prison, that's it. They're finished. Their life will be only worse from that moment on, because their life already is fucked, and now they have an extensive criminal record and a lot of court orders and shit once they get out of prison. It's easy to go back. But that's not to say that it can't be done. Because I'm a big success, and I've been to prison. And I know several other people that have become successful after prison. So it can be done. But you have to learn to take that negative energy and move it into a positive direction. You need to learn to take the negativity of waking up. And I used to have a cellmate that would be shooting up all the time. I would see probably half the unit or more shooting up. People shoot up like just in common areas. Like it's not like, I don't know, there's no real decorum to it. Like the guards and cops and shit like that don't care as much in the actual prison. And they have certain units and that are worse than others. They have certain units where they send troublemakers and things like that. I didn't have, I'm not a dope head. I didn't take the shit in prison. I wasn't taking the drugs or anything like that. I stayed away from that sort of stuff. That's how I got parole. But as a rule also, while you're on bail, you should be trying to get your sentence. Like you should be preparing for court. You should have the best lawyer that you can afford. You should Should be doing the programs, all of that sort of shit. Should be getting the psych reports, all that stuff if you're in for some sort of substance use or substance-based crime. You know, you should be preparing a case for the court for why you committed the crime and why, if they give you a bit of a chance, you won't do it again. Like, it's actually addressed. See, a lot of people don't fucking understand that court is theatre. Like, are you giving the judge a reason to give you a lighter sentence? See, a lot of people are dumbasses. They think that the only way to a lighter sentence is to snitch. And in Australia, there's a lot of snitching. The Woodford itself, snitch jail is bigger than the fucking mainstream jail here. So it's very common in that country to snitch because a lot of people are fucking dumb, like especially dope heads. But there's other ways to get your sentencing like down, like it's like a treble damage, like there's a way to minimize the sentencing. Like, have you actually committed to courses? Have you been doing charity? Have you been working? Have you been doing things? Do you have a family or something to look after that you can demonstrate that you actually provide for them? So all of this stuff the government doesn't want to have to do. Like, if you go to prison for a longer stay and you're a provider for your family, the government does not want to have to provide for them. They would rather you're out. So again, if you're a high taxpayer or like, you know, a productive member of society, they don't want to lock you up because it doesn't make sense. Like, it costs them money to keep you in prison. They only want to keep the biggest fuck ups in jail as long as they can because they have to pay them anyway because they're just on the fucking dole. You know, but if you're a productive member of society, you give them a reason to give you a less of a sentence. And if you're looking at 10 years, like you said in the question, then you should be trying to get it down to even 9 years because then it's not 80%. In Queensland, if you get 10 years, it goes as an SVO. So you have to do 80% of your time. But if you get 9 years, you might be able to only do a third of your time and then have 6 years parole, which is a long parole, but it has been done. Many people do it all the time, that they stay on parole that long. I had, between parole and court orders and bail, I had like 5 years of that bullshit. And I've done it, you know, so other people can do it. You want to sit in prison the minimum amount of time because it's a waste of time. You're going to learn a lot of bad habits and take a lot of bad energy. You know, the thing that with energy is real. Guys think that energy is all bullshit until they go to such a negative environment like that. You know, like, energy is real when you go to a hospice or a place like that where people are dying, and then you walk in and you realize that, like, it's a real thing. Like, there's people that are dying and you can feel it in the air. And prison is bad because it's walk in, and as soon as you walk into, like, you know, a proper unit, you can feel that there's a lot of suffering in there, and that sort of stuff like sticks to you. So you want to avoid that as much as you can. You don't want to bathe in that for extra years if you don't have to, because it will roll with you forever. You know, there's a reason also where guys who go to prison once are more likely to go back. It's not just that they take on a lot of the shit from the police and things like that. Like, the police are chasing them from that moment onwards, although they are in Australia, which is why I don't live there. It's very hard for the police to let go of someone that they want to fuck over. And if I was to be back in Brisbane, I imagine that I would end up back in prison because the police don't really let shit go. They would still come around to my house while I was on parole, even though I'd been on parole for years at that point, and try and fuck me over. So again, they don't let that shit go. But once someone's been to prison once, they build connections and things like that there. The more connections you have with a place, the more likely you are to go back. I've heard from guys that are doing life, I know several, who would tell me the day or a couple of days before I left, Stephen, don't send me a letter, don't call me, don't talk to me, just forget about this place. Because if you have any connections to this place, you will come back. I would hear them say their greatest errors was that they kept connections with guys who were going in and out of prison, because then they themselves found their way back in there. You know, if you're hanging out with people that are going to prison, like, it's very likely that you're going to end up going there, especially if you're already on the police radar and especially if you've been there once before. Because for most people, prison is not that bad. Like, most of the people that go to prison because they're dope heads, like, they're just drug addicts. So they can still get their Suboxone, they can still get their Seroquel, they can maybe get an endone every now and then or some heroin. You know, that's not bad. Like, that's what their life is like on the outside. Instead of just trawling around looking for dope and stealing shit on the outside, they just trawl around looking for dope on the inside. So their life's not that different. But as a rule, you want to ditch any substance use that you're doing now, because it will be a lot harder to do once you're in there. You don't want to touch the substances in there. You don't want to get involved in the politics. You don't want to get involved in the dope game. You don't want to get involved in owing anyone money in there. You want to squash any beefs before you go in there, because they will follow you into prison, especially if they're any gang related or any sort of relation to crime itself. You've got I would hope that you're in for nothing that's unforgivable in prison. There's the big three, like anything against kids, you're fucked. Anything snitching, you're fucked and it will come out. Anything against, like, that's too hard on women, like sexual crimes mostly, you're probably fucked. It would have to be pretty explainable or something like that. But anything with kids, snitching, any of that, like, it doesn't matter. Like, anything that you can say, you're fucked, like, as soon as people know, and they will find out. There's lots of ways to find shit out beyond what people would think. If people are in for really bad crimes, the guards will often tell the prisoners just so that they fuck them up. So, yeah, if it's anything of those, like, your stay is going to be very different to what mine was. You won't be able to stay in the normal jail because you'll be fucking killed if you stay there or try to get by in there. But yeah, so as a rule, you have to do your own time. Don't get involved in other people's shit. Don't be anyone's patsy. Don't carry any drugs for anyone. Don't do any favors for anyone. Don't ask any favors of anyone. Because once you ask favors of people, you owe them shit, and they're going to get you to do more and more shit over time. Don't work under anyone. Don't be, like anyone's bitch boy. I used to see that a lot. There's a lot of like fatherless guys in prison, and they would see a lot of the guys who they kind of like see as a father figure, like a strong figure, and then they would end up pretty much doing a lot of shit for them that could easily extend their stay in prison, if they get caught. Don't fight for people if they wouldn't fight for you. Don't fight for pointless fucking things, like shit that doesn't matter. Don't get too close to people, because then their bullshit can be your bullshit and you don't know exactly what they're in for. Some people you can get close to and then find out that they're in there for something fucking really bad, and it can reflect on you. You have to get very good at reading people, reading situations, and reading when violence is about to kick off, because violence is not it's not a boxing match like in prison. It's not a game. Like, it's not some fucking game. Like, there's a ref and all of this shit. Violence is very different. Like, it's just, you have to fight and you have to survive for a period of time before the cops come, and they may not come. Fights can be like very different than some sparring match or something like that. It's the very open area. There's nowhere to hide. Like Woodford itself, 80 guys in the unit, just one room, with some place on the outside. You can't just hide in your cell. There's no like, oh, I don't want to see this person today, so I'm not going to see them. No. And there's no like, the cops can take a few minutes to get into the unit if they want, and they might not want to come into the unit. If the unit's going crazy or squad or something runs in, all this shit happens. But as a rule, you have to do your own jail time. That concept is not getting involved in other people's crap, seeing that got your 10 years to do, and that you understand that other people have done it and become successful. And as a rule, the more pain and suffering that you can take, if you can harness it into something good, you can be a massive success. Like, that's what I've done. I've had to take a lot of shit in my life. I've done a lot of shit that I think that would have killed 1,000 men, shit that I've been through. I've had long prison stays. I've had shit with the army. I've had all of the bullshit, and that is what I credit to why I'm such a big success now. There's no one that was at Woodford that's more successful than me. I can think no one at the actual jail itself is richer than me. I've managed to turn it all on its head, since then. And that's only because I took a lot of the poison shit that I was given there. The negative environment, the anxiety, the uncertainty, I got a 6-year sentence, but I could apply for parole after 2 years. And then it's not a guarantee that I would get it. So you have to apply by a letter. You have to deal with all of that bullshit. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to get out. I had the girlfriend when I went in. I had all of the bullshit. I certainly didn't have one when I got out. So I had a lot of the stuff that I dealt with. I've dealt with all of the bullshit. I've had friends that I've lost, had friends that have died. I've had a friend that was murdered. So I've dealt with a lot of the intense stuff. You'll see things that would break 100 men, and you have to learn to be able to move through it. If you move through a 10-year stay in prison, even if you move through a 1 or 2 year stay in prison, you will be a guy that will be a formidable guy, because you will have seen how the world really is, outside of the veneer. The veneer of niceness, when you walk around and you're in a society and everyone's fucking nice and everyone's fake and shit like that, that's not really a thing in prison, because it's built on a thing of violence. They don't need to be nice to you. Like, if people don't like you and they don't respect you, you will learn very quickly that it doesn't matter. Like, there's no social norm. People can punch people and hit them and do shit there, and it doesn't matter. The cops don't really monitor that sort of stuff. They don't really give a fuck about that sort of shit, as long as it's not too intense. So you learn a lot of stuff about human nature out in that society itself and the community and things that we live in. A lot of it is kind of like just a veneer. The jungle of a prison, it's, like you say, it's like the rules of the jungle. So you would want to get good at boxing, at least okay, at least where you can throw a 1-2 and you can move and evade and be able to throw and at least slip punches and things like that. You don't have to be Floyd Mayweather, because that won't help. Just because you're a great fighter, they'll just have more people and there's weapons and shit like that, and you won't be prepared. You're not eating well when you're in prison. The diet sucks. The environment sucks. In Woodford, there's no weights. You can't train with any weights. So it's not like you're going to be at your best anyway. I went to prison, I was 110 kilos. I come out at like 78 or something. I lost a fuck ton of weight. So, yeah, as a rule, you're not going to be at your best anyway. So you've got to... Yeah, that's the one big thing. The boxing, you got to be able to box. You got to be able to move. You got to be fit. You got to be off all the substances, any vices you have. You got to squash any beefs you have, any street beefs that have to be squashed. It's better to squash them now. Some you might not be able to squash, and they will roll with you. So keep your head on a swivel with that. Understand that a lot of guys get fucked up over women. Some girl that they were fucking or something like that is fucking or talking to someone who was in the unit, and now they're trying to cause drama for you. And a lot of guys in those sort of environments are massive simps. They're in a scarcity of everything, with women, money, everything. So guys get fucked up just over dumb shit like that. I was in prison and I was getting letters from a girl that I was dating before I went in there. And when they dropped the letters off, they dropped them in like a fishbowl thing, like the fishbowl itself, and other people can see them. Can see the letters itself. You can't pick the letter up, but you can see it. And some fucking dork wrote down the return address of the girl that I was seeing. And he wrote down her address, and he sent her a few letters that said that I was fucking other girls and that I was talking to girls, and I was telling her telling everyone how dumb this chick was that I was talking to and all of this shit. So he fucked things up for me there. But that is what it is. I only know the shit that I know, and the shit about human nature and the stuff that I know about reality, because I've been through everything. I've been through all of the shit like that. I've had all of that stuff happen, and that's just one of probably like 10,000 stories that I would have of something like that happening. So yeah, as a rule, with your finances as well, 10 years is a long time for investments. Like, if you're investing smart before you go to prison, you could come out to a massive nest egg. I know money's going to be hard, because if you're paying for a lawyer and all of this other stuff, it's difficult. I had a lawyer that would go on to become a judge. He's a judge now. So I had probably, I guess, the best lawyer and barrister in Brisbane. So I got a good outcome. You might not be able to afford that or get that sort of access, but you still need to get the best that you can get. You still need to do the programs and all that crap before you go to prison. You still need to present a story for why you offended and why you won't do it again. It's not about snitching or all of that crap. It's about fucking just presenting yourself as good as you can. You don't get any credit for getting extra jail. That's dumb. Like if you can do things that will minimize your time, you want to do it. Everything is possible without snitching. You don't snitch, but everything else you can do. Like you can present, oh, I was taking these substances, now I don't. Oh, I was diagnosed with this and I have been getting treatment. Oh, I was not working hard enough, but now my boss says that I'm a great worker. I pay taxes, I have people that rely on me, I'm a provider, I'm a good provider for my community. These are the receipts and shit that I have. All of that shit matters because court is theatre. The prosecution will present that you're a massive fuck up and a disaster and that they can't keep you in society. And you need to have shit that says that you're not and that you're actually doing something good for the community. Because that's what people don't understand. They just stand there stone-faced and think that the prosecution's presented a fucking shit pile on them and them standing there saying nothing. That's like, there's no way. Like court is just weighing one side and the other. So now there's a massive discrepancy. So that's how the prosecution fuck people over and they don't even know. So yeah, that's my take. Obviously it's quite long, but I get asked all the time for guys that have gone to prison, especially in Australia. I understand that there's a massive fucking idolization of gang culture down there, and that for most, the vast majority, this is where they will end up. Not here with me, not multi-millionaire, they'll end up in fucking jail, in shit, and they'll realize their group and their fucking gang doesn't give a single fuck about them. Most of them, they don't even pay their legal. They're paying all of this fucking money and shit, giving their fucking future away for someone who doesn't care about them. For a lot of them, their friends will be fucking their girl and their girls anyway when they get out of, like, once they're in prison. A lot of those people have fucking zero ethics, zero morals, zero brotherhood. It's all a fucking LARP. It's just a big ego game. So guys can feel important and the guys at the top can make money. And while they sacrifice all of the guys at the bottom. A lot of the guys in Oz are like fatherless. Like the dad's either too busy, he's too busy because of inflation and things like that. Like he has to work a lot more hours than he would have had to in the past. He has more stress, so he's too busy to monitor his son. So now his son grows up in social media and around all these other fucking idiots that are just loud, obnoxious, big mouths. And then the son thinks, oh, that's what a man should be, so I'm going to follow him. And then the guy just sacrifices him down a fucking river that locks him up in prison. All for nothing, and then when he gets to prison, he learns the hard lesson that none of the guys gave a fuck about him. The guys, again, like I said, I've known guys where they've gone to prison for causes relating to a gang, and the guys, quickly in his house, like his members of his group, taking his shit. The guys are hitting on his girl. Some guys fuck his girl. Guys don't really even visit him. They just pay lip service. They just post an Instagram story every now and then that just grandstands their fucking loyalty and their support for the guy. Oh, I miss my bro who's in prison. A lot of it is fucking pathetic in that game in Australia. It's a fucking massive losers game. It's all bullshit. And guys throw their life away on that sort of a fucking quest. It's not masculine to be a fuck up like that. It's not masculine to be like a stain on society. A lot of those groups are only tough guys if they intimidate civilians. They're not tough guys running around joining the military. They're not tough guys going to actual war. They're only tough guys running around hurting fucking the average Joe or hurting people when they're high. And then you take their drugs away and they just sit in jail and cry all the fucking day and fucking get on the phone and beg people to send them $50 so that they can get their Suboxone for the week. It's fucking pathetic. And that's the lesson and that's the trip that you go down if you go down that route. I know because I've seen fucking thousands. Like I've seen thousands of guys do the same shit. Been in prison for a long time. I've been around that sort of a lifestyle. I still see it today. And it's a real shame. But that's my take. And I know it can upset people when I talk freely like that. Because a lot of people profiting off that sort of a lifestyle in Australia. A lot of people that I know, there's people that I respect that are still in that sort of a life. And I would hope that, guys that are younger and things like that can come to see it for what it is. There's no glory in sitting in prison. There's no glory in throwing your life away for a cause that's dumb, especially a cause that you're not really profiting off. You know, it's not something that is fucking smart. You know, you should grow to have your own family and your own kids and things like that. You shouldn't be sitting in fucking prison. It's dumb. And I know some things happen and some things happen that you can't get away from, and things do happen and you can get stuck there. But, you know, at least it has to be worthwhile. Like, at least if you go to prison for something you deliberately did, that you were profiting off, or an action that you knew that if I do this, like, there's a fair chance that I'm fucked, but I have to do it. I understand that. But a lot of guys get pushed into shit like fucking, like a chess piece on the board, like a pawn, and they just get pushed in to essentially be taken by another piece, like they're just sacrificed. So, yeah, I know it's a long video, and some people will watch it and some won't, but that's my take on prison and why you should fucking avoid it.